Personnel policy draft.
All right, so obviously I've already found spelling errors and some issues here or there, so I'll keep finding those and bring you back the final policy. Really, I wanted to get it in front of you guys so that if you took the time to read it or had questions or were concerned about certain areas, you could give me that feedback so I can continue to incorporate that. You know, Katie and I kind of need to go through it again. I did sit down with all the department heads and run through it. You know, again, it's a lot of pages to cover. It's kind of built off our last one, but with some new modern law changes and pieces and some deletions. You know, some of the things we changed, obviously we changed the terminology to manager, we changed, you know, the hiring process for department heads, etc. I still put language in there. You know, Mandy and I added quite a bit of language to it here the last couple of weeks, but we talked about, you know, we still want to have a panel for department heads for the hiring process. You know, I still want feedback and input. I think that's important for this position. You know, there's language in there. I think we strengthened some of the nepotism stuff, but also still, you know, for business necessity, you know, gave myself and department head, you know, discretion to, you know, obviously we live in a small town, small area that sometimes it's hard to get around. I think there's new stuff about politics. The sexual harassment stuff has been strengthened and updated. And again, you know, I had a 6-month snapshot of kind of what issues I've seen or tried to pick up on, and so I adjusted some of that. I think there's still some bigger level ideas that we have, but I think that'll be kind of a down the road as I continue to kind of learn more about how our city operates, and it's kind of one of those you don't want to, you know, bite off too big of a chunk. So I think this fits nicely where it's kind of fixes some of the pressing issues that I've seen, and also still provides a good guideline for me. That's what a policy is. You know, it's hopefully a good framework for us and our employees to know what's expected.
Pretty much a rewrite then, wasn't it, the whole thing?
Yeah, it was a lot of early mornings last week or two and trying to get it pounded out. So, and I'll keep, like I said, we'll keep going through it. There's still a few grammatical things I kept finding or changing. So
You don't realize how important these are until you have an issue.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what we've been trying to think through and talk through, you know, with ourselves, with the department heads of, you know, how will this work for some of the issues we've had in the last, you know, couple of years. So.
Will there be any issues with anybody on the residency policy?
So that, the residence policy, again, that was a carryover. And as far as I know, everybody's either grandfathered in or it's fine right now. Yep. About the only suggestion there was, and this is something I kind of toyed with, but you know, I think it's probably a thought for another day, is, you know, like the power plant guys, I did have Manny come in since they're kind of their little unit up there and talk to him about it a little bit, and you know, obviously with them living out of town, so they're 15 minutes away, that's kind of one of those that you really want them there as quick as possible in a power outage, because they're kind of the, you know, the kind of, they'll tell you what's going on a little bit. You can kind of see which circuit is, and it's kind of nice to have that expertise, but also it takes 20 or 30 minutes just to get the power plant online, if I remember correctly talking to them. So they had mentioned that, you know, it would be nice to maybe, you know, by department kind of split that out, you know, so most departments it's fine, you know, Parks and Rec, 15 minutes is, you know, 30 minutes is probably not even a big deal. But, you know, with the power plant, you know, that was a thought, but I didn't implement it at this time. I kind of wanted to do some more thinking and feeling out, because again, you also don't want to, you want to hire and employ as much as possible, but it does limit your tool a little bit. So, so that was about the only thought with that either.
Okay. Day administration draft?
So this might be kind of cart before the horse, but it'd be tacked onto our personnel policy, and kind of what I did was Okay. So with the wage study, they kind of threw out there, again, it's kind of a modernization of our pay plan. Currently, we do a step and grade system, merit system. This they have said that, you know, again, they haven't probably written a step and grade system for 8 to 10 years, and so they're kind of saying, you know, a lot of cities, obviously businesses already have gone to a range type format. They'll still have grades, that the position would start at, but then use a range, and we'll talk about that here a little bit more into what's in your packet. But so kind of what I developed, off of that was just kind of a pay administration policy that talks about, how are we going to apply the ranges, how are we going to do pay raises, how are we going to do the merit pool, how are we going to adjust the ranges, what if people are tapped, we're still going to have issues. We've got a lot of long-term, very diverse employees that are outside of the ranges as they've found in other communities. Well, that's just because of the unique situation. Just like I'm sure in other communities, it's different in other positions. So, how are we still going to reward those, incentivize those guys? Another concern that I know departments had over the last few years, and I picked up on here recently, was the ability to hire, especially the entry-level guys, which the pay study kind of addresses, but also guys that may have some experience. What kind of a system are we going to start them at? How are we going to take that minimum on the range and put them in the right spot within that range? So this also gives us some guidance, but also discretion with this. So with the ranges, it's also a little bit more loosey-goosey, I guess you could say, is what it could be. But I still wanted to have some structure within it. So not only with the starting, but also with the evaluation, the grading of the employees. If we go to the range adjustment type situation, then with also in conjunction with a merit pool, how are we evaluating the employees and rewarding them based on their performance and making sure it's consistent. And obviously I kind of gave you a rough draft of what that evaluation form would be and how it would work. Something obviously we're going to have to vet. I've got a couple of employees identified that I will go through the process with them to make sure it's working and adjusted appropriately, etc. So there will be some adjustments, but ultimately I want to make sure that we're administering that fairly, but also rewarding employees based on their performance. So that's kind of what that pay administration policy talks about. We had a little bit of a pay administration chapter in our previous policies. So I kind of took this more from they sent Austin Peters Group kind of sent me some examples from other communities and kind of took it and obviously fit it to Beloit and to make it a workable document, I guess. So I don't know if there's any thoughts or inputs. Kind of the highlights with it. Basically, Austin Peters Group, they produce a kind of a cost of living number. It's kind of a hybrid number. It kind of based on other wage studies that they're doing concurrently, data they're collecting, state of Kansas, kind of what the government puts out, for COLA or CPI, and kind of develops this hybrid number, and it usually comes out in June, which is really good timing. Because then right away, July, August, we're doing our budget, so we're going to be able to kind of look and say, hey, what's that number telling us, and what kind of number do we want to do for a merit pool? Okay, so we can kind of work those together. Right now our merit, well, it's not really merit, it's just it's the next step. Is roughly about 4.2% raise. Okay, so that at least gives you some guidance. If you came in this number, the wage scale number, because you want to keep those up to date, so we're not having to do wage studies all the time. Was a 2% number, then you kind of say, hey, here's what we want to do for the merit pool, and grade people off that, and they have a certain participation within that merit pool. So that's kind of what that document's talking about. So,
Any questions for Jason on that?
As far as the wage study,
yes, sir.
you're still showing the range average minimum max and then the recommended minimum 60th, recommended maximum 60th.
Yep.
So
Yeah, there's a, I'm sorry, yeah, we can get to that. I probably didn't define it very well, Andrew, I'm sorry. They really recommend the 60th, so that's why they put that. I just didn't carry. The range average minimum and the range average maximum, right, the two columns before that should also say, is also from their report. So that's the average. If we only move the scales to the average, the last set of columns is if we moved it to the 60th, okay? So this two columns right here is what, except for this, I messed up on this is backwards. But these two columns are what they are currently, okay?
What the city currently has right now.
Correct. This one right here is if we moved them to the average based on the study. This is if we moved it to the 60th percentile. Okay, yep, good question. So, so yeah, kind of get into the meat and bones of this. Again, this is one of those where we're looking at positions, and then, as a default, whatever we decide will affect certain employees within those positions. But it's really hard. That's not really the purpose of the wage study. It's really to say, hey, where are we at in these positions when we're hiring and et cetera for this. So obviously the market has changed here or there. Some of the entry level individuals, kind of like the power plant or the electric guys or the power plant, some of those positions, that minimum did move, about $1.50 type of would be an example. I kind of have a color-coded one here for myself. So, and again, with this, obviously some of the positions that they have the ranges actually went down a little bit. Okay, so we saw that especially in some of the administrative type staff. We talked to them about that. Their data was showing that back in 2009 when we did this last and adjusted some of those things, that administrative staff is a little bit more, and is kind of what people are going after and paying a little bit more for. Now it's kind of reversed a little bit, and it's gone more to the technical side. And that's kind of what we saw, is especially on some of those entry level positions, like some of your operators, your apprentice linemen, your linemen, that kind of stuff. That's where we saw a little bit of upward push. If you want only with the range average, only probably about half of the ones affected in the 60th would actually move a little bit, but overall there's not a ton of adjustment, because even between September of last year and now, we've done quite a few reviews, and a lot of those people that are affected within these ranges have already moved, and they've kind of soaked up what changes the study is saying. So the big thing with this is it's condensed our range numbers. So those no longer correlate. If you see on here, a power plant operator 1, he's a 22, now he's like, well, I'm actually a 24. Well, it doesn't. It's a different correlation now. So we've gone down to about 12, 13 ranges, but they've only given us really 9, because the other ones I just kind of filled in because we don't have a position that fits that what that range would need. So yeah. So I tried with this sheet to just really make it as simple as possible, just kind of go based on the position, kind of what the average and the 60th is. Initially, with the economy, I kind of thought, well, maybe we should do average. But on the flip side, there's not a lot of cost difference between the two. You do the study, you paid for it. What's the longevity of it? If you do, just a little bit higher, go to that 60th percentile, it might be more long-term usable. But again, that's kind of where I figured that was more in your court as far as kind of what your thoughts were on that. Again, it's not the cost of the city as far as live, actual employee cost. If we don't go backwards, we're not going to go backwards to anybody. They say it'd only be the people we'd adjust forward. It's $15,000 for the average and $30,000 for the 60th percentile. So out of a $2.7 million payroll, we're not talking real big dollars here.
Any other questions? Okay, moving right along. Kind of touched on the evaluation there.
Yeah, I'll skip that. That's kind of boring. So you want to go right to the ATV ordinance, Tom?
Pardon?
You want to go to the ATV ordinance then?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know whether you want to talk about your evaluation a little bit more, but
No,
yeah, I'm fine. You're sure right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have hours of reason for all that work.
Yeah, just as long as I can fly around my house, I'm great.
Yeah, so I'll let Katie talk about this one. I think this is kind of one of those that we probably covered a few things, so hopefully.
Yes, I tried to kind of give you as much information as I could in that memo, so you had some time to process it. But basically, I missed something when we were doing codification. We actually had 2 different ATV sections, so we need to fix that. So that's what I'm trying to do with that proposed ordinance 2205, and I've kind of explained what I'm doing there. And if you're concerned about, well, we don't have off-road vehicles or ATVs defined, those are actually defined in here for us, and we've adopted this. So there's really no reason to make our own definition in our code when we have the STO that does that for us. And the STO is really, we really need to be using that. It's in there. And then that's what we've used to kind of create our ordinance for driving on the street with ATVs. I call them side-by-sides, that's just what we call them on the farm, I guess, but worksite utility vehicles, you know, those. So we've addressed all of that. So that's what I'm doing with 2205, is kind of fixing something that was missed before. And then with regard to the new ordinance and operation on private property, after, you know, our discussion and obviously input from the public and my discussions with Jason and some looking at what other cities have done, I've proposed kind of a something similar to a lot of what our ordinances have, which just prevents unreasonable operation. So clearly discretion is with our officers, as is with a lot of things. But we're trying to prevent the racing, the revving, the engines, the tearing up the yards, potentially running over little kids, driving on the sidewalk, you know, things that are, so that's what I've tried to address with 2206, I guess, I don't know.